The fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting dancing shadows across the rough-hewn walls of the main house. Outside, the Arizona winter wind howled through the canyon, carrying the scent of juniper and cold desert air. Samuel Hartwell sat in his leather armchair, the one his wife Icy had given him 20 years ago, worn now to the shape of his body. At 65, his hair had gone silver, but his back remained straight as a rifle barrel. His eyes pale blue as high country ice watched the boy across from him. Thomas was 15, newly arrived from Boston 3 days prior, the son of Sam's granddaughter sent west because his mother said he needed to understand where he came from. The boy stared at the photograph on the wall. A tall Apache woman stood beside a younger Sam, her hand on his shoulder. In her arms, a baby wrapped in white cotton. "Grandfather," Thomas said, his voice carrying that careful tone children use when approaching dangerous subjects. "Was grandmother really Apache?" Father never spoke much about it. Sam was silent. He lifted the glass of whiskey to his lips, took a slow sip, felt the burn travel down his throat. The boy waited, fidgeting with his coffee cup. Good. Let him learn patience. In the West, a man who spoke too quickly often spoke foolishly. "Sit down, son," Sam said finally, his voice like gravel worn smooth by river water. "I'll tell you about the strongest woman I ever knew, and about this land, what it's worth." The boy settled into the wooden chair, eyes wide. Sam poured himself another finger of whiskey. Just one. He'd learned long ago that some stories needed the edge taken off, but a man who dulled himself too much couldn't tell them right. The firelight played across Sam's weathered face, catching the deep lines around his eyes. Lines earned from squinting into desert sun, from laughter, from grief. "See that rifle above the door?" Sam gestured with his glass toward the Sharps model 1874 mounted on pegs. "You know what that is?" Thomas shook his head. "Sharps rifle, 50 caliber 70 grain powder. Made it in Hartford, Connecticut, 1874. That gun saved my life 3 times. You know how to clean a rifle, boy?" "No, sir," Sam grunted. "Your generation, they don't teach you the important things anymore." He stood joints, protesting only slightly, and lifted the rifle from its pegs. The weight of it familiar as his own heartbeat. He carried it back to his chair. "Before I tell you this story, you're going to learn something. A man needs to know how to care for his tools, especially the ones that keep him alive." For the next 10 minutes, Sam's gnarled hands moved with practiced precision. He showed Thomas how to open the breech, how to inspect the barrel for fouling, how to run the ramrod through with an oiled cloth. His voice, usually spare with words, became almost generous as he explained each step. "This Sharps, it fires a cartridge this big." Sam held up his thumb and forefinger, spacing them 2.5 inches apart. 50-70. That means .50-inch diameter bullet, 70 grains of black powder. Accurate to 500 yards if you know how to read the wind. Cost me $40 new. That was 2 months' wages for a cowboy in those days. Thomas watched, absorbing. His young hands tried to mimic Sam's movements, clumsy but earnest. "Good," Sam said when the boy managed to properly seat the ramrod. "Now you're ready." He set the rifle aside, leaned back in his chair. The fire popped. A log settled, sending up a spray of sparks. Sam closed his eyes. September 1873. I was 38 years old, been a widower for 6 years. Living alone on this godforsaken piece of desert, with 4 horses and a fool's dream of making something grow where nothing wanted to. When he opened his eyes again, they were looking not at the room but at something far beyond it, at a past that lived in him still vivid as yesterday. The heat that day had been merciless. 100 degrees by Sam's reckoning, maybe more. The kind of heat that made the air shimmer, that turned your sweat to salt crust before it could cool you. Sam had been working on the fence line, driving posts into earth hard as fired clay. His left leg, the one that took a mini-ball at Gettysburg 10 years prior, throbbed with each impact of the sledgehammer. The ranch, if you could call it, that consisted of one small cabin, 12 feet by 16 rough-cut pine logs chinked with mud and grass. A barn half built, its frame standing like the rib cage of some great beast. 40 acres of scrubland, enclosed by a fence, more ambition than reality. He'd filed a claim under the Homestead Act, but hadn't yet completed the paperwork. Just another thing he kept meaning to do. Sam wore a flannel shirt gone gray with age, and washing denim trousers patched at both knees, boots so worn the leather had molded to his feet like a second skin. The walking stick he needed for his bad leg leaned against the fence post. That's when he heard them. Not the casual sound of travelers on the trail. This was different. Three horses moving fast, the rhythm urgent. Sam dropped the sledgehammer and reached for the sharps. In this country, a man who didn't have his weapon close was a man who didn't plan on staying alive. They came over the rise like something from a fever dream. Three Apache warriors, their horses lathered with sweat. The leader rode a magnificent Appaloosa, black and white spotted muscles rippling under its hide. The man himself stood well over 6 feet, bare-chested, except for a leather vest, his face painted with streaks of red ochre. Behind him, two more warriors on scrubby mustangs. Sam raised the sharps, not pointing it, just holding it ready. The leader, the one Sam would later know as Kuruk, reined in his horse 20 feet from the cabin. His eyes, black as obsidian, met Sam's without flinching. Then, without ceremony, without explanation, he grabbed something from behind his saddle and threw it to the ground. Not something. Someone. The body hit the hard-packed earth with a sound Sam would hear in his dreams for months after. A woman tall and powerfully built, even in her broken state. Her legs twisted at angles that made Sam's stomach clench. The right one, God help her, showed white bone through torn flesh. The left swollen, purple-black. Her buckskin dress, once fine, hung in tatters. Her arms bore cuts gone septic, oozing yellow. But her eyes. Even through the pain, through the shock, her eyes burned. Not with fear, with something harder, something that refused to break. Kuruk spoke in Apache, the words harsh and clipped. Then in English, his accent thick but clear. Icy, daughter of Mangas. Broken, useless, yours now. Sam opened his mouth to respond, but the warrior had already wheeled his horse. The three of them thundered away, leaving nothing but dust and the broken woman and a silence heavier than stone. Sam stood there, the sharps growing heavy in his hands. Looked at the woman. She couldn't have been more than 30, though pain aged everyone. Her hair, black as crow feathers, lay matted with dirt and blood. Her skin, the color of desert sand in late afternoon light, was covered in bruises old and new. He should take her to town. Cedar Ridge was 15 miles. She'd die on the way. He should leave her. Not his problem, not his people. The Apache had been raiding settlers for as long as there'd been settlers to raid. But her eyes, they found his and held. She wasn't begging, wasn't pleading, just waiting. Waiting to see what kind of man he was. Sam lowered the rifle, leaned it against the fence post, limped over to where she lay. Can you understand English? A slight nod. Do you want to live? She was quiet for a long moment. In that silence, Sam heard the wind, the distant cry of a hawk, his own heartbeat. Then another nod. But it wasn't the nod of someone afraid of death. It was something else, something he didn't yet understand. Getting her inside nearly killed them both. She was solid muscle, maybe 170 pounds of dead weight. Sam was 6'1", 180 himself, but his leg made every step an ordeal. He ended up using the fireman's carry he'd learned in the war. Hoisting her across his shoulders, her weight pressing down on his neck. 20 steps from the fence to the cabin door. Each one an eternity. His bad legs screamed. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes. But he made it. Pushed through the door, crossed to the only bed in the place. A crude frame with a corn husk mattress. He laid her down as gently as he could. She was conscious, watching him through slitted eyes as he cut away the remnants of her buckskin leggings with his Bowie knife. The right leg was bad. Compound fracture of the tibia, the bone protruding through skin that had already started to turn gray at the edges. The left showed no break in the skin, but the swelling suggested a fractured femur. Sam had learned field medicine the hard way. Gettysburg, the wilderness, Cold Harbor. Places where a man either learned to set bones and stitch wounds or watched his friends die. He'd seen more death from infection than from bullets. White man, she said, her voice a rasp of pain and exhaustion. White boy, what? He paused in his examination. Why what? Why not let me die? Sam didn't look at her, kept his eyes on the wound, because that would be too easy. He had work to do. First water. He had a pot boiling on the stove for coffee. He took his Bowie knife, the 8-inch blade he'd carried since Antietam, and dropped it in the boiling water. Let it sit for 10 minutes while he gathered the rest of his supplies. 4 pieces of straight pine, each 18 inches long and 2 inches wide. He'd planed them smooth last month, intending to use them for furniture. 3 lengths of wire from his meager supply of barbed fencing, a bottle of Kentucky bourbon, 40% alcohol, cotton rags torn from an old shirt. The woman watched him prepare. Her breathing had gone shallow, shock setting in. "This is going to hurt," Sam said. He held up the bottle of bourbon. "Do you want something to bite on?" She shook her head. Sam had set bones before, but never one this bad. He washed his hands with the harsh lye soap he made himself, the same soap that left his skin cracked and raw. Then he poured bourbon over the protruding bone, over the torn flesh around it. The woman's body went rigid. A hiss escaped through her clenched teeth, but she didn't scream, didn't cry out. Just that one sharp intake of breath forced through her nose. Sam placed his hands on the bone, felt the sharp edges, the displacement. He would have to pull, to straighten, to hope the bone would slip back beneath the skin. In a hospital, they'd have ether-proper tools, trained doctors. Here he had his hands and his nerve. He pulled. The sound the bone made sliding back into place was wet and terrible. The woman's back arched off the bed. A sound came from her throat, something between a growl and a scream, animal and defiant. Sam didn't pause, couldn't afford to. He positioned the 4 splints around her leg above and below the break on all 4 sides. Used the wire wrapped in cotton to bind them tight. Tight enough to immobilize. Not so tight it would cut off blood flow. He'd seen men lose limbs to gangrene from splints tied too hard. The arm was worse in some ways. The cut had festered, filled with pus. He took his knife from the boiling water, let it cool just enough that it wouldn't sear flesh, then made a small incision to drain the infection. Yellow-green fluid poured out, the smell of it sharp and putrid. The woman bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. Sweat covered her body like rain. He squeezed the wound, forcing out as much corruption as he could, then doused it with bourbon. Wrapped it in clean cotton. When he finished, his hands were shaking. The woman had passed into unconsciousness, probably for the best. He covered her with a thin blanket, one of only 2 he owned, and sat back on his heels. Only then did he realize he'd just committed himself. This woman, this stranger, this Apache who belonged to people who'd killed settlers just like him, was now his responsibility. Sam spread his buffalo hide on the floor 6 feet from the bed, used his coat rolled up as a pillow, set his loaded Colt revolver within arm's reach. The sharps he propped against the wall by the door. Sleep didn't come easy. He lay there listening to her breathe. Ragged at first, then slowly evening out. The fire died to embers. Moonlight came through the single window, painting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Sometime past midnight, he heard her stir, a small sound of pain. He sat up, saw her trying to reach for the water pitcher on the table beside the bed. Her hand trembled, couldn't quite grasp it. Sam stood, poured water into a tin cup, brought it to her. Her hand shook too much to hold it steady. "Let me," he said. He helped her drink, one hand supporting her head, the other tilting the cup. She drank deep, water running down her chin. When she'd had enough, he set the cup aside. They looked at each other in the moonlight. Her eyes even now held no plea for mercy, just a kind of wary assessment. "Why you keep me here?" she asked. "I am nothing but burden." Sam was quiet a moment. "You wanted to stay, didn't you?" She didn't answer. He returned to his bedroll on the floor. Sleep came eventually, thin and troubled. Morning brought cruel light through the window. Sam rose before dawn, as he'd done every day since the war. His leg was worse than usual punishment for yesterday's exertions. He made coffee, thick and black, and corn porridge in the pot, set a bowl of it beside the bed without waking her. She was awake when he came back from feeding the horses, had managed to pull herself up to sitting her back against the wall, her powerful arms doing the work her legs couldn't. The porridge sat untouched. "You need to eat," Sam said. "I do not take charity." "It's not charity, it's breakfast." "Same thing." Sam shrugged, began eating his own portion. Let the silence stretch. After 20 minutes, she reached for the bowl. Pride was one thing, starvation was another. While she ate, Sam went outside. He had an idea of forming something he'd seen in the Army hospital, a way for wounded men to move when their legs wouldn't carry them. He began with measurements. The height from his cabin floor to the ground outside, 18 inches, the distance from the door to the yard, 12 feet. He wanted a ramp, gentle slope, maybe 7 degrees, something a wheelchair could manage. For 2 days, Sam worked. He cut pine boards, planed them smooth, built a frame. The woman watched from the window when she could, her eyes tracking his every movement. He caught her looking once, quickly turned away, but not before he saw something in her expression. Confusion, maybe? Or suspicion? As if kindness without cost was a concept she couldn't quite grasp. On the third day, he brought the ramp around and fitted it to the doorway, tested it with his own weight. Solid. Then he started on the chair. The design was simple, a seat of buffalo hide stretched across a wooden frame. Two large wheels from an old farm wagon he had found abandoned 10 miles south. Handles attached to the wheels so the user could propel themselves. On the fifth day, he brought it inside. The woman stared at it like it might be a trap. "Want a trial?" Sam asked. She looked at him, then at the chair, then back at him, finally nodded. He watched her pull herself from the bed using only her arms. The strength in her shoulders, her back was remarkable. She lowered herself into the chair, her hands finding the wheel rims. Pushed. The chair rolled forward. For the first time, Sam saw something like wonder cross her face. She wheeled herself to the door, out onto the ramp, into the sunlight. And there she stopped. Just sat there, hands still on the wheels, face turned up to the sky. Sam stood in the doorway, giving her space. He didn't see the tears at first. She was too proud to make a sound. But her shoulders shook just slightly. Her breath caught in her throat. A woman who'd been trapped inside for 5 days, who'd been left for dead, who'd lost everything, was crying, not from pain, from something else entirely. When she finally wheeled herself back inside, her eyes were dry but red-rimmed. "Thank you," she said. 2 words, but they carried weight. That evening they sat in a silence less hostile than before. Sam carved pegs for a new fence section. The woman whose name he still barely knew as Icy watched him work. "Why you not look at me like I am broken?" she asked suddenly. Sam didn't pause in his carving. "Because you're not." "My legs," she gestured. "Your legs are injured. That's not the same as broken." She was quiet a long time. "Then in my tribe, warrior with no legs is useless. Something to throw away." Sam set down his knife, looked at her directly. "I was useless too, after the war. Couldn't walk right, couldn't sleep without nightmares. Thought about putting a bullet in my head more than once." He tapped his cane. "Just because one part doesn't work doesn't mean the rest is worthless." Something shifted in her face. Some wall beginning to crack. The next day a boy came from town. 12 years old, paid a nickel to deliver messages. He brought a letter. Sam opened it, read. It felt his jaw tighten. The letter was from Silas Crawford, the biggest rancher in the territory. The words were dressed up in politeness, but the meaning was clear as creek water. "I heard you're keeping an Apache squaw. The town council doesn't approve. Get rid of her or face consequences." Sam looked at Icy. She was watching him, trying to read his expression. He walked to the stove, opened the door, and fed the letter to the flames. "You're not going anywhere," he said. Over the next week, something began to change. Icy refused to remain idle. She demanded a knife, and Sam, after some hesitation, gave her a small paring blade. She used it to shuck corn, to braid rope, to mend the holes in Sam's shirts with stitches so small and tight they'd hold for years. Her hands were never still, and as she worked, she began to talk. Not much, just fragments. About how her mother had been a medicine woman, how her father Mangus had been a chief who tried to make peace with the whites, how he died in 1871 at Fort Bowie, shot down while riding under a white flag. Sam listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened the way he'd learned to in the war when dying men needed to speak their piece before the darkness took them. One afternoon, while Sam was building a new chair to better fit her frame, Icy spoke from behind him. "You treat me like I am still person." Sam turned. "You are a person." She gave a dry laugh, her broad shoulders shaking. "No one in my tribe believed that. Warrior with broken legs is just extra thing to throw away." "I was extra too," Sam said, "after the war. Then I found this land. Sometimes being extra just means you haven't found where you belong yet." She stared at him. For the first time, something in her eyes softened. That same day, she asked if he had any medicinal herbs. Sam showed her his small garden, mostly vegetables and a few cooking herbs. She shook her head. "One enough. I need yerba mansa, osha, root juniper." "Can you write them down?" She took his pencil and paper, wrote in Apache script. The symbols meant nothing to Sam. She smiled, actually smiled. You need me to go with you. The next morning, Sam pushed her in the wheelchair out into the desert. She directed him to places he'd walked past 100 times without seeing what grew there. Under her instruction, they gathered roots, leaves, berries. She explained each one, what it treated, how to prepare it, when to harvest. They were heading back when Sam saw them. Two riders on a ridge about a quarter-mile off, just sitting their horses watching. He recognized them. Crawford's men. Get down, Sam said quietly. They took shelter behind a stand of mesquite until the riders moved on. But the message was clear. They were being watched. That night, Sam checked his weapons. The sharps fully loaded. The Colt's 6 rounds in the cylinder. The Bowie knife freshly sharpened. Icy watched him from her chair. They will come back. I know. Because of me. Because they're cowards who think they can push people around. She was silent. Then, I can leave. Go into desert. You will be safe. Sam set down the rifle, looked at her. You can leave any time you want, but don't leave because you think you're saving me. I make my own choices. And you choose to keep me here. I choose to let you choose. The words hung between them. Outside, a coyote howled. The desert answered with its ancient, indifferent silence. On the 12th day they came. Not Crawford's men this time. Apache warriors, 7 of them appearing like ghosts at sunset. They didn't approach, just sat their horses at the edge of the property watching. The leader was Kuruk. Even at a distance, Sam recognized him. Kuruk called out in Apache, his voice carried across the still evening air. Icy translated, her voice tight. He says I belong with my people, not with white men. What do you want to do? Sam asked. She wheeled herself to the door. Even sitting, her presence commanded. She called back in Apache, her voice strong. The exchange went back and forth. Sam couldn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Defiance meeting defiance. Finally, Kuruk spoke in English, clearly meaning for Sam to hear. You cannot keep her. She is Apache. Blood calls to blood. Sam stepped forward. Not threatening, just present. She stays where she chooses. And where is that white man? Icy wheeled herself forward, out onto the ramp into the open. She stopped beside Sam, reached up and took his hand. I choose here, she said in English, loud enough for all to hear. I choose him. The words fell like stones into still water. Kuruk sat motionless on his horse. In the fading light, Sam could see his face. There was pain there, deep pain. Kuruk spoke again, this time softly in Apache. Icy's hand tightened on Sam's. He says he loved me, she translated, her voice catching. But I never loved him. Then Kuruk's voice hardened. Back to English. The council will not accept this. You are now alone. If enemies come, we will not protect you. We'll protect ourselves, Sam said. Kuruk looked at Icy one last time. Something passed between them. Not love, but perhaps understanding. Perhaps goodbye. Farewell, Icy, daughter of Mongus, he said. Then he turned his horse and led his warriors away into the gathering dusk. When they were gone, Icy collapsed forward in her chair. Not fainting, just the weight of what she'd done finally crushing down. Sam knelt beside her and she turned into him, her face against his chest, her body shaking with sobs. I just cut all ties with my past, she said into his shirt. Sam held her. Then we'll build a new future. They stayed like that as the stars came out, as the desert cooled, as the first chapter of their story ended and another began. Inside, Sam helped her back to bed, but this time she didn't let go of his hand. Sam, she said. Her voice was different now, vulnerable in a way he hadn't heard before. Yes, I do not want to be alone tonight. He understood. This wasn't about desire, it was about comfort, about 2 people who'd been thrown away finding each other in the darkness. He brought his bedroll closer to the bed, close enough that if she reached out, she could touch him, far enough to respect the boundaries. But in the night he woke to find her hand in his. She was sleeping, but her fingers had found his and held on. Like a drowning person holding a rope, Sam closed his hand round hers, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 6 years slept without nightmares. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Crawford wouldn't stop. The town wouldn't suddenly accept them. Winter was coming and the supplies were low, But tonight in this moment, two broken souls had found something neither had expected. Hope. The second night, Thomas sat in the same chair, but he leaned forward, now elbows on his knees. The story had hold of him. Sam could see it in the boy's eyes, the way young men look when they're beginning to understand that the world is larger and harder and stranger than they'd imagined. What happened next, grandfather? Sam refilled his coffee cup. Not whiskey this time. This part of the story needed a clear head. October 1873. Your grandmother had been with me 6 weeks. Things were changing. The fire popped. Outside, an owl called across the canyon. She wasn't helpless anymore, and I was learning that strength comes in forms you don't expect. The morning Essie wheeled herself outside before Sam woke, he found her already working. She'd positioned her chair beside a pile of corn he'd harvested the day before, ears still in their husks. Her hands moved with practiced speed, stripping away the dried leaves, tossing the clean ears into one basket, the husks into another for kindling. Sam stopped in the doorway, watched her work. She hadn't heard him yet. In the early light, her profile was sharp as cut stone. Her hair, which had grown longer, hung loose down her back. The bruises had faded. The arm wound had healed clean. She was still thin, but no longer looked like death waiting. You didn't have to do that, he said. She didn't startle. I not sit and do nothing. He came closer, saw the pile she'd already finished. At least 24 ears. You've been out here since dawn. In my tribe, even wounded warriors contribute. She glanced at him. You feed me, give me shelter. I give back. Sam picked up an ear of corn, began stripping it himself. They worked in silence for a while, the rhythm easy. When he fumbled with the tough inner leaves, she reached over and showed him a trick. How to grip the base and twist, how to snap the silk away clean. You learn slow, she said, but there was warmth in her voice, almost teasing. But you learn. That afternoon, she asked about the leather strips he used for tack repair. Sam showed her his collection, mostly scraps salvaged from old harnesses. This is wrong way, she said, examining his attempt at braiding 3 strips together. Apache way is stronger. She demonstrated. Not the simple over-under pattern he knew, but something more complex. A triple weave that interlocked in a way that distributed tension evenly. When she finished, the braid was beautiful, tight as woven fabric. Pull, she commanded. Sam pulled. The braid held firm under pressure that would have snapped his version. Show me again, he said. She did slowly this time, her fingers moving with deliberate care. Sam's first attempt was clumsy. She corrected him without judgment, adjusting his grip, showing him where the pattern repeated. By the 3rd try, he had it. Good, she said, and smiled. A real smile, the first he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, made her look younger, softer, made him realize she was beautiful. That night, Sam brought out the Bible that had belonged to his first wife, Sarah. The leather cover was worn soft, the pages yellowed. He opened it to Genesis, pointed to the first verse. Can you read, he asked. Icy shook her head. I speak English. Learn from trader who came to tribe. But reading, no. I'll teach you if you want. She looked at the book like it might bite her, but then nodded. They started with the alphabet. Sam wrote each letter on a scrap of paper, pronounced it, had her repeat. A, B, C. Her tongue struggled with some sounds. The th in the came out hard like a D. But she was fierce in her determination, making him repeat words until she could mimic the shape of them. After 3 nights, she knew all 26 letters. After 2 weeks, she could sound out simple words. Cat, dog, man, God. This word, she pointed to love in a verse. What is it, love, Sam said. She repeated it, love, then looked at him. What does it mean in English? It means caring about someone more than you care about yourself. She was quiet, considering. Apache have word too, but it is different. It means more like belonging to someone, being part of them. Maybe it's the same thing, just said different. Their eyes met, held. Sam felt something shift in his chest, like a door opening that he'd thought was locked forever. The morning Sam went to check the water, he knew something was wrong before he saw it. The sound was gone. The small stream that fed his land, barely more than a trickle, but enough for the garden and the horses, had gone silent. He followed the stream bed up into the hills, his bad leg protesting the climb. 2 miles north he found it. Someone had built a crude dam of rocks and mud, diverting the water east into Crawford's land. Boot prints in the mud, size 11 standard cowboy heel. Sam had seen those prints before around Crawford's property. In the West, stealing a man's water was the same as putting a gun to his head, just slower. He stood there looking at the dam. Could tear it down right now. But Crawford owned the land here, at least on paper. The water ran through his property before it reached Sam's. Legally, he had the right to divert it. Morally, it was theft. But the law and morality didn't always shake hands. Sam could go to the sheriff. Morrison would nod, make sympathetic noises. Do nothing. Crawford owned half the town council, or he could find another way. When he told Icy, she listened without interruption. Then said, in Apache way, we not fight water. We find water. There's no other water source here. I checked it when I filed the claim. You white man look with eyes only. She tapped her temple. Apache look with knowing. She explained how to read the land. Cottonwood and willow only grew where water ran close to the surface, where the earth was darker, richer, where morning mist hung thick in winter, where rabbits and quail gathered at dawn. There, she said, pointing to a cluster of willow behind the cabin. You dig there. Sam had walked past those willows 100 times, never thought about what their presence meant. He started digging that afternoon. The earth was hard resistant. He made a pit 4 feet square, went down 6 feet before his shovel hit moisture. 8 feet, the mud turned to seep. 10 feet, water began to pool. 12 feet, he struck a spring, not large, maybe 2 gallons a minute, but steady, cold, sweet. It took 3 days to dig the well proper, to line it with stones, to build a bucket and pulley system. Isai helped where she could, handing him tools, mixing mortar from sand and lime. Her upper body strength was remarkable. She could lift a bucket of stones Sam struggled with. When he pulled up the first bucket of clear water, they both stared at it like it was liquid gold. Isi wheeled closer, dipped her hand and tasted it. Good water, sweet water. Sam sat down on the edge of the well, exhausted. His shirt was black with sweat and dirt. His hands were blistered despite his calluses. Isi wheeled beside him. They sat together, both filthy, both tired, both grinning like fools. You saved us, Sam said. No. She reached over, took his hand. We save us. Her hand was rough with work, strong, warm. Sam looked down at their joined hands, hers brown as earth, his pale and weathered, fitting together like they'd been made that way. Partners, he said. She squeezed his hand. Partners. Sam needed supplies. Flour was running low, coffee nearly gone, and winter was coming. He'd put off going to town as long as possible, but necessity didn't care about comfort. I'll be back by evening, he told Isi. I come with you. He hesitated. Town folks won't be kind. I know, but I not hide. So he hitched the wagon and helped her up onto the seat, loaded her wheelchair in the back. The journey to Cedar Ridge took 2 hours over rough roads that hadn't seen maintenance since the territorial government gave up pretending it had money. Cedar Ridge wasn't much. Main Street consisted of 8 buildings: Hoskins' General Store, the Lucky Dollar Saloon, Patterson's Blacksmith, Sheriff's Office, a white-painted church that only saw a circuit preacher once a month. Doc Harrison's office, though calling him a doctor was generous. The bank, which was really just a desk in the back of the general store, and the Cedar Ridge Hotel, which had 3 rooms and bedbugs. When Sam pulled the wagon up in front of Hoskins' store, people stopped, stared. A woman crossing the street grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her away like Isi might be contagious. Inside, Hoskins stood behind his counter, weighing out nails for a customer. He looked up, saw Sam, then saw Isi in the wagon outside. His face went tight. Sam, he said carefully, I can't serve you if you bring her inside. Sam set a $5 gold piece on the counter. 20 pounds of flour, 10 pounds of coffee, box of 50-70 cartridges for my sharps. Sam, be reasonable. She's Apache. And I'm a customer with money. You selling or not? Hoskins looked at the gold coin. $5 was $5. Times were hard. He sighed. Wait here. While Hoskins gathered the supplies, Sam heard voices outside. Rough voices, the kind men used when they wanted to sound bigger than they were. He stepped to the door. 5 men had gathered around the wagon. Jack Crawford, Silas's nephew, stood closest. 25, built like a brawler, mean drunk reputation. Hey, Hartwell, Jack called. You keeping a pet savage? Icy sat motionless on the wagon seat, eyes forward. But Sam saw her hands white-knuckled on the edge of the seat. Sam didn't answer, went back inside, helped Hoskins load his supplies into a crate. "You're making trouble for yourself," Hoskins said quietly. "Crawford's not going to let this go." "Crawford doesn't own me." Sam carried the crate outside. The men were still there, and now Silas himself had arrived, stepping down from a fine black gelding worth more than Sam's entire property. Silas Crawford was 52 gray at the temples, dressed in a black suit that probably cost $100. He owned 800 acres, 500 head of cattle, and most of the town council's votes. "Samuel," Silas said, his tone friendly as a snake, "heard you picked up an Apache stray." "Heard you expanded your herd to 500 head," Sam replied. "Impressive. Don't change the subject. That woman is a liability. She's on my property, not yours." Silas's smile never reached his eyes. "Your 40 acres border my 800. I don't want Apache trouble spilling over." Sam loaded the crate into the wagon bed. "She's not trouble. Today she's injured and helpless. Tomorrow she calls her people down on all of us. Apaches are murderers, Sam. You fought in the war. You know about enemies." Sam turned to face Silas directly. "I also know about cowards who send other men to do their fighting." Silas's smile vanished. "I'm giving you friendly advice. Get rid of her, or I'll call the sheriff. There are laws about harboring hostiles." "She's not hostile. She's injured. Today. What about tomorrow?" Silas lowered his voice so only Sam could hear. "You've got until the end of the month. After that, this gets official." Sam climbed onto the wagon seat, took up the reins. Sheriff Morrison had appeared from his office, hand on his gun belt, watching. Morrison stepped forward. "Sam, can I have a word?" Sam set the brake, climbed down. Morrison led him a few steps away. "I like you, Sam," Morrison said. He was 45, decent man in a bad situation. "But Crawford's got influence. Town council meets next week. They might pass an ordinance. No Indians within town limits." "She's not in town limits. She's on my ranch." "I know, I'm just saying, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Sam looked at Morrison for a long moment, saw a man who'd chosen the easier path, who'd keep choosing it until the path led somewhere he couldn't come back from. "I appreciate the warning," Sam said. Climbed back onto the wagon. The ride home was quiet. Icy stared straight ahead, jaw tight. An hour out from town, she spoke. "Why you risk this for me?" "I'm not risking anything I care about losing." "They will hurt you." "Let them try." She turned to him. "I can leave. Go back to desert. Die there with dignity." Sam stopped the wagon, looked at her. "You can leave any time you want. I won't stop you. But don't leave because you think you are a burden. Leave because you want to." "What if I want to stay?" "Then stay." The words hung between them. In the distance, a hawk cried. The desert stretched away in all directions, endless and indifferent. "Man," Icy said softly, "you are first white man I do not hate." That night, after the horses were fed and the supplies stored, Sam sat cleaning his weapons. The sharps, which he broke down and oiled carefully. The Colt, each chamber checked, each round examined for corrosion. The Bowie knife stropped to razor sharpness on his leather belt. Icy watched from her chair. "They will come back. I know. Because of me. Because they're the kind of men who think they can push people around." She was silent a long time. "Then in my tribe I was warrior. Best shot with bow. Fastest rider. My father's pride." Her voice caught. "Now I am nothing." Sam set down the rifle. Went to her. Knelt so their eyes were level. "You're not nothing. You're the woman who showed me where to find water when I was dying of thirst. You're the woman who taught me to braid leather strong enough to hold a horse. You're the woman who's learning to read in a language that's not her own." He took her hand. "You're the bravest person I've ever met." Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to blink them away. Failed. Sam pulled her close. She came into his arms, her face against his chest, her body shaking with silent sobs. He held her, one hand on her back, the other stroking her hair. Held her until the storm passed. When she pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. "I do not want to be alone tonight," she said. Sam understood. This wasn't about desire, about need of a different kind, about two people finding warmth in a cold world. He moved his bedroll beside her bed, close enough to touch, far enough to respect. But in the night she reached down, found his hand held it, and he held hers back, their fingers interlaced. Two broken people holding each other together. The knock came 3 nights later, just after dark. Sam had his gun in hand before the second knock fell. "Sam, it's Jack Miller. I'm alone." Sam opened the door, gun still ready. Miller stood there, hat in hands, looking scared. "What do you want?" "To warn you, they're coming tomorrow night. 6 men plus Wade Grimes." Sam knew the name. Everyone in the territory knew Wade Grimes. Apache hunter bounty killer, the kind of man who'd shoot you in the back and call it fair. Crawford hired him, Miller nodded. $500. They're supposed to make it look like an Apache raid. Then Crawford can claim the land legally, say you abandoned it. "How do you know this?" Miller looked at the ground. "Because he offered me 100 to help." Sam raised the gun. "Wait." Miller held up his hands. "I said no. I came to warn you. You saved my life at Shiloh, remember? Carried me off the field when my leg was shot. I owe you." Sam did remember. A boy of 19 screaming for his mother, femoral artery pumping blood. Sam had tied it off with his belt, dragged him 300 yards under fire. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm here. Because I could have stayed quiet, taken my 100, let them kill you." Miller met his eyes. "I'm not that man anymore. You taught me better." Sam lowered the gun. "Come inside." They planned through the night. Sam, Izzy, and Miller. The cabin became a war room. Weapons first. Sam had his sharps and Colt. Miller brought his Springfield rifle, a cap and ball relic from the war, but still deadly at range. Icy wanted her bow. "Can you shoot sitting down?" Sam asked. "Watch me." He rigged up a target outside. She wheeled out, arrow knocked before Sam could blink. The first shot went wide. The second hit the edge of the target. The third dead center. "I am not helpless," she said. "I never thought you were." They set traps. Icy taught them Apache techniques. Tripwires made from fishing line, nearly invisible in dim light, strung at ankle height for horses. Pits dug shallow, filled with thorns, and covered with brittle twigs and dust. False trails marked with scuff marks leading into ambush zones. They positioned themselves. Sam in the cabin with the sharps covering the main approach. Icy in the barn with her bow flanking shots. Miller behind the woodpile rear guard. "If this goes bad," Sam said to Icy, "you get on a horse and ride. Don't look back." "If this goes bad," she replied, "I die fighting, like a warrior should." Sam started to argue, saw her face stopped. Some fights you couldn't win with words. They came at dusk, like Miller said they would. 7 men on horseback, confident, casual. The kind of confidence that comes from numbers and weapons and the belief that you're about to hurt someone who can't hurt you back. Sam watched from the window, recognized 2 of them as Crawford ranch hands. The others were strangers, hired guns probably, and leading them Wade Grimes. Grimes was everything his reputation promised. 6'3", heavy through the shoulders, carrying a Winchester 1873 like it was part of his arm. His face had the kind of hardness that came from seeing too much violence and enjoying it. They spread out professional. 2 toward the front, 3 circling behind Grimes, and another hanging back as command. The first 2 rode straight into the tripwire. The fishing line caught the lead horse at the fetlocks. The animal went down hard, screaming, throwing its rider. The second horse shied, reared. The rider stayed mounted but lost control, and an arrow whispered through the twilight. Caught the rider in the shoulder, not deep, but enough. He shouted, grabbed the shaft. The gunfire started then. The man on the ground rolled, came up shooting. Sam aimed the sharps carefully, led the target, squeezed. The heavy rifle slammed back against his shoulder. 50 yards away, the man went down, leg shattered. The 3 coming from behind hit the pit trap. 1 horse stepped through, went down to its knees. The rider flew over its head, landed badly. Didn't get up. 2 left from that group. They dismounted, took cover behind the barn. Miller's Springfield boomed. One of them grabbed his arm, fell back. Now it was 4 on 3, and Grimes was getting angry. "Hartwell," he shouted, "you're making this harder than it needs to be." Sam didn't answer. Reloaded the sharps. The brass cartridge ejected hot. The new one slid home smooth. 10 seconds from shot to ready. One of the men tried to rush the cabin. Icy's arrow caught him in the thigh. He went down howling. Not dead, but done fighting. "God damn it." Grimes stood up from his cover. "You want to die for an Apache whore?" The rage that went through Sam then was cold and complete. He stepped out of the cabin, sharps in hand. "Call her that again," Sam said quietly. "Please." Grimes raised his Winchester. Sam was faster. Not with the draw Grimes had him there, but with the aim. The sharps boomed. The Winchester flew from Grimes's hands, the stock shattered. Grimes stared at his empty hands, then at Sam. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. "You're done here," Sam said. "Take your wounded and go. Tell Crawford this land isn't for sale. Crawford will come himself." "Let him." Grimes looked around, counted his men. 2 dead, 3 wounded, bad enough they needed help, against 3 defenders in prepared positions. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Grimes collected his men, loaded them onto horses. One was crying, the young one with the arrow in his leg. Another, the one with the shattered femur, screamed when they lifted him. They rode away in defeat, left blood on the ground, left their dead. After they were gone, Sam, Easy, and Miller stood in the yard breathing hard, trying to believe they'd survived. "We did it," Miller said, wonder in his voice. Sam just nodded. He was looking at Icy. She sat in her chair, bow across her lap, 3 arrows left in her quiver. Her face was calm, but her hands shook slightly. He went to her, knelt down, took her hand. "You were magnificent," he said. She laughed a little wildly. "I was scared." Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. That night, they buried the 2 dead men on the edge of the property. Sam didn't know their names. Didn't matter. They were still men. Miller left at dawn, heading back to town before anyone noticed he'd been gone. "Thank you," Sam said. "We're even now," Miller replied. "But Sam, watch yourself. Crawford's going to be twice as mean after this." He was right, of course. But Sam had learned something, that he would fight for this land, for this woman, that he had something worth fighting for. Inside, Icy was waiting. "Come here," she said. Sam went to her. She reached up, pulled him down, and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was fierce, desperate, full of all the fear and relief and something else they hadn't named yet. Sam kissed her back, his hand cupping her face, feeling her alive and warm, and there to us. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she said, "I love you," in English, clear as daylight. "I love you too," Sam said. They made love that night, not desperate, not rushed, slow and careful and full of wonder. 2 people who'd been alone too long, finding their way back to each other. After she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Sam," she said, "I need to tell you something." "What?" She took his hand, placed it on her belly. "I'm carrying your child." Sam went very still. "Are you certain?" Apache woman know her body. Yes, maybe 10, 11 weeks. He should have been scared. They had no money, winter was coming, enemies circling. But all he felt was joy, pure, clean joy. "We're going to be a family," he said. She nodded against his chest. "Are you happy?" "More than I've been in 10 years. They lay there in the darkness, holding each other, their child growing between them. Outside, the desert wind sang through the canyon. Tomorrow would bring new troubles, but tonight they had this. They had each other. And for now, that was everything. Sam looked at Thomas across the fire. The boy's eyes were wet. "Your mother," Sam said. "Turtle. That's who we're talking about. Born March of 1874. Strongest, smartest woman I ever knew. Except for her mother." Thomas wiped his eyes. "What happened then?" Then Sam said, "Things got harder. Crawford didn't give up. And bringing a child into the world in that place at that time with those people hunting us." He shook his head. "That's a story for tomorrow night. You need rest." But as Thomas stood to go, Sam added, "Your mother grew up knowing she was loved. Knowing her parents fought for her before she was even born. Remember that. It matters more than you might think." The boy nodded left for his room. Sam sat alone by the fire, remembering everything. The third night, Thomas didn't wait to be invited. He was already sitting by the fire when Sam came in from checking the horses. The boy had set out 2 cups, filled the coffee pot. "Learning. You ready for the rest?" Sam asked. "I've been thinking about it all day," Thomas said. "About grandmother, about the baby, about what happened." Sam settled into his chair. Outside, rain had started rare for December in Arizona. It drummed on the roof like distant cavalry. Arch 1874. Your grandmother was 8 months along. Big as a house, she used to say, though she never complained, not once. He sipped his coffee. Let the memories come. That's when Crawford made his move. Not with guns this time. With something worse, the law. Winter had been kind to them. No snow, just cold nights and short days. Sam had reinforced the cabin, added a second room for the baby. Icy's legs had improved. She could stand now with crutches Sam had carved from ashwood. Could walk maybe 50 feet before the pain got too bad. But she was walking. The baby moved strong inside her. Sam would put his hand on her belly at night, feel the kicks, life pushing its way into the world. Then Jack Miller rode out to warn them again. Sam Crawford's found a way. They sat at the table, the three of them, Icy's belly pressed against the edge. She was huge now, her face fuller, her movements slow but determined. What way? Sam asked. The Homestead Act. You filed a claim, but you never completed the paperwork. Never went to the land office in Tucson to register it proper. Sam felt his stomach drop. He'd meant to. Kept putting it off because Tucson was 120 miles 3 days ride, and he couldn't leave EC alone that long. Crawford knows. His lawyer's planning to file a claim himself. Say the land's still public domain. If he files first, you lose everything. When, week from today, maybe less. Sam looked at Icy. She met his eyes, nodded once. She understood. I have to go, he said. I know. You'll be alone, with the baby coming, anytime. Martha will stay, and Rosa. EC had made friends with two women from town. Martha, who'd apologized for her earlier coldness, and Doña Rosa, a Mexican midwife who didn't care about skin color, only about babies coming into the world safe. If something happens while I'm gone, then Rosa will handle it. She has delivered 300 babies. She knows more than any doctor. Icy took his hand. You must go, Sam. If we lose this land, we lose everything. So at dawn, Sam saddled Thunder, his best horse, filled 2 canteens with water, packed jerky and hardtack, loaded his sharps and his Colt. Icy stood at the door on her crutches, belly huge, face set. You come back to me, she said, always. He kissed her, long and deep, kissed her belly, then mounted and rode. The first day was brutal. The trail to Tucson ran through desert so empty it made a man feel small. Heat radiated off the sand even in March. Thunder was strong, but Sam had to rest him every 2 hours to keep from breaking him. Late afternoon, 3 riders appeared on a ridge ahead. Bandits probably. Mexican or American didn't matter. They saw a lone rider, saw opportunity. Sam loosened the sharps in its scabbard, kept riding. They came down off the ridge, spread out to block the trail. The leader, a heavy man with a scar across his nose, called out in Spanish. Sam answered in the same language. Rosa had been teaching him. I'm just a man trying to get to Tucson. I don't want trouble. Your gun, your horse. Leave them and go. Can't do that. The 3 men looked at each other, grinned, started forward. Sam drew the sharps, smoothly fired before they'd cleared their pistols. Not at them. At the ground 5 feet in front of the leader's horse. The heavy bullet kicked up a geyser of dirt. The horses shied. The riders fought for control. Next one's not a warning, Sam said in Spanish. I fought at Gettysburg. Killed better men than you. Ride away. Something in his voice or maybe his eyes convinced them. They turned and rode. Sam didn't lower the rifle until they were dots on the horizon. The second day, the heat nearly killed him. Thunder stumbled twice. Sam's canteens ran dry by noon. He knew the signs of heat exhaustion. Dizziness, nausea, the way your thoughts got slow and stupid. He remembered what Icy had taught him. Barrel cactus. He found one cut into it with his knife. The flesh inside was wet greenish. He squeezed it into his mouth. Bitter, but it was moisture. That night, 2 Apache scouts found him. Sam recognized the markings of Kuruk's band. His hand went to his gun. Wait, one said in English. We know you. You are man who keeps Icy. Sam nodded warily. The scout dismounted, offered Sam a water skin. Kuruk says we not hurt you. You are her choice. We respect that. They shared water. The Apaches pointed to a canyon Sam hadn't seen. Shorter way, save half day. Why help me? The scout looked at him for a long moment. Because Icy was our sister, our father's daughter. She chose you. So you are, in a way, our brother now. They rode off into the darkness. Sam took the shortcut. He reached Tucson at 2 in the afternoon of the third day, rode straight to the land office, a squat adobe building near the center of town. Inside, a clerk sat at a desk shuffling papers. Behind him, a lawyer Sam recognized from Cedar Ridge, Crawford's man. "I'm here to file a homestead claim," Sam said. "Section 14, Township 12. The lawyer stood. "My client is filing for that same land." "On what grounds he doesn't live there?" "It's unclaimed public land. First to file wins." The clerk, an older man with spectacles, looked between them. "Who has proof of residence?" Sam reached into his coat, pulled out a letter. The paper was worn from 3 days in his pocket, but the writing was clear. "I, E.C. Hartwell, wife of Samuel Hartwell, living at this land since September 1873. We have home. We have baby coming. This is our land." The handwriting was uneven, some words misspelled, but it was signed by E.C., witnessed by Jack Miller, and dated. The clerk read it, looked up at Sam. "This is signed testimony of residence." Sam set $18 on the desk. Everything he had saved. Filing fee. The clerk stamped the paperwork. "Congratulations, Mr. Hartwell. The land is officially yours." Crawford's lawyer turned red. "This isn't legal. She's Apache. She can't own land. The Homestead Act says any citizen can claim, and any citizen's wife." The clerk fixed the lawyer with a hard stare. "The claim is filed and paid for. It's done." Sam took his receipt, folded it carefully, put it in his pocket, looked at Crawford's lawyer. "Tell Silas he lost." The ride back took 2.5 days. Sam pushed hard, slept little. Something told him he needed to hurry. He was right. He saw the smoke from 5 miles out. Not the cabin, the chimney. Someone was cooking, but there was too much smoke. Something was wrong. He pushed Thunder into a gallop. For the last mile, the horse's breath coming in great gasps. Martha met him at the door, her face pale. "The baby's coming. Something's wrong." Inside, Essie lay in bed, her face slick with sweat. Rosa knelt beside her, hands on Essie's belly, face grave. "What's wrong?" Sam demanded. Rosa spoke in Spanish. Martha translated. "The baby's turned wrong. Breech, feet first instead of head." Sam felt the world tilt. Breech births killed mothers, killed babies. "Can you fix it?" Rosa nodded slowly. "I can try, but it will hurt her." Sam went to Essie, took her hand. Her grip was weak. "I'm here," he said. "I'm not leaving. The land ours, legal and paid for. Now stop worrying about that and let Rosa work." What followed was the longest hour of Sam's life. Rosa used her hands, pressing and kneading Essie's belly from the outside, trying to turn the baby. Essie screamed, actually screamed, something Sam had never heard from her. He held her hand, pressed a cool cloth to her forehead, felt utterly helpless. Finally, Rosa sat back. "Está bien. The head is down." But they weren't done. The labor started at sunset. Rosa and Martha took charge. Sam was banished to the other room with orders to boil water and stay out of the way. He paced, listened to Essie's cries through the wall, prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. 2 hours, 4, 6. Then finally a different sound, a baby's cry. Thin and angry and alive. Martha opened the door. "It's a girl. She's perfect." Sam went in. Essie lay exhausted, her hair plastered to her scalp, her face gray. But she was smiling. In her arms, a tiny baby's skin, somewhere between Sam's pale and Essie's brown, a shock of black hair lungs that could wake the dead. "Sarah," Essie whispered. "Sarah Essie Hartwell." Sam knelt beside the bed, touched his daughter's tiny hand. She gripped his finger with surprising strength. "She's beautiful," he said. "You're beautiful." Essie laughed weakly. "I look like I fought a war." "You did, and you won." That night, while Essie and the baby slept, Sam sat by the fire. Martha and Rosa had gone home. The cabin was quiet except for the baby's occasional snuffles. He looked at the deed in his hand, the proof that this land was his, theirs, and he thought about what it meant. Not just dirt and rocks, but a future, a place for his daughter to grow up, a place where an Apache woman and a white man and their mixed blood child could maybe, just maybe, build something that lasted. Summer came hot and dry. Sarah grew strong, nursed fiercely, slept less than Sam would have liked. Icy recovered slowly, her body worn from birth, but her spirit undimmed, and the town gradually began to change. It started with Martha, who brought fabric for baby clothes. Then the blacksmith's wife, who brought a rattle her own children had outgrown. Then others. Not everyone, not even most, but enough. One day an old cowboy named Chester stopped by. He'd been one of the loudest voices against Easy before. "Ma'am," he said, hat in hands, "I wanted to say I was wrong about you, about what I said. I'm sorry." Icy, holding Sarah on her hip, nodded. "Thank you." They shook hands, white weathered skin against brown, a small thing, but it mattered. Sam decided to make it official. He spent a week carving a sign from a thick plank of oak, 4 feet long, 2 feet high, carved deep with his best chisels. Hartwell Ranch, Edstone, 1873. Isai watched him work. On the last day, she said, "Can you add something?" "What?" She wrote Apache symbols below the English words. Shinjo o Shika Nabahi. What does it mean? Love builds our home. Sam carved it carefully, each symbol exact. When he was done, he painted the letters black so they'd stand clear against the wood. They held a small ceremony. Jack Miller came, Martha and Rosa, the blacksmith and his wife, a dozen others from town who'd come to accept, if not fully understand, what Sam and Essie had built. Sam mounted the sign on 2 posts at the entrance to his property, drove them deep, packed the earth tight. This sign would stand for generations. When the last nail was driven, Sam turned to the small crowd. "This land was built by 2 people who were broken," he said, "who the world threw away. But we proved that what you build matters more than where you come from. This ranch is proof that honor and work and love are stronger than hate." He didn't say more, didn't need to. The sign said everything. That evening, after everyone had gone, Sam and Essie stood looking at it. Sarah slept in Essie's arms. "We did it," Essie said. "We did." They went inside to their home. Sam looked at Thomas across the dying fire. The boy was crying openly now, not trying to hide it. "Your mother grew up here," Sam said. "Strong and smart and proud. She became a teacher. First one in Arizona with Apache blood. Taught white and Mexican and Apache children all the same. She married your grandfather when she was 22. Had your father 3 years later." "What happened to grandmother?" Thomas asked. Sam was quiet a long time. "Your grandmother lived 24 more years after your mother was born. We had 3 more children. Jacob, Emily, Mongas. All strong, all good." He paused. Easy got sick in 1895. Consumption, the lungs. She fought it for 3 years. Died in my arms in our bed in 1898. He stood, went to us window. Rain still fell outside. "I buried her on the hill behind the house, where she could see the ranch, where she could watch over everything we built." Thomas came to stand beside him. "I'm sorry, grandfather." "Don't be. She lived, really lived, more than most people ever do. She knew love, knew purpose, knew that she mattered." Sam turned to the boy. "That's what I'm trying to teach you, son. It's not how long you live. It's what you build while you're here." The next morning, Sam took Thomas up the hill. The rain had stopped. The air was clean and sharp. Essie's grave sat under a cottonwood tree Sam had planted the day after she died. The headstone was simple granite carved deep. Isai Hartwell, 1844, 1898. Warrior, healer, mother, wife. Love built her home. Shinjo Oshika Nabahi. Thomas stood quietly reading the words. "Look there," Sam said, pointing down the hill. The ranch spread below them. The original cabin, now part of a larger house. 3 barns, corrals with good horses, fields that actually grew things, and scattered across the property other houses. Thomas's mother lived in one with her family, Jacob in another, Emily in a third. 4 children, 12 grandchildren, 30 great-grandchildren, and all because a white man with a broken leg and an Apache woman with broken legs decided to build something together. Sam reached into his pocket, pulled out a simple silver ring, worn thin from years of wear. "I made this for your grandmother in 1874, from a Mexican silver dollar. Hammered it myself." He handed it to Thomas. "I want you to have it." Thomas held it like it might break. "Why me?" "Because you came here asking questions. Because you want to understand where you come from. That matters." Sam put his hand on the boy's shoulder. When you find someone to love Thomas, someone worth building a life with, you give them this, and you remember what it stands for. What does it stand for? That love doesn't see color, doesn't see where you came from or what you've lost. Love sees who you are and who you might become. Love builds things that last. He squeezed the boy's shoulder. Your grandmother taught me that. Now I'm teaching you. They stood together on the hill, 3 generations connected by story, by blood, by the land beneath their feet. Below, the ranch woke to morning. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played in the yard. Horses whinnied in the corrals. All of it built on the foundation of 2 broken people who refused to stay broken. Sam looked out over the land he'd fought for, the home he'd built, the legacy he'd leave. A man isn't measured by his strength, he said softly, or by his victories. He's measured by what he builds, by what he leaves behind. He looked at Thomas. Your grandmother and I, we left this family, this land, this proof that love can overcome anything if you're willing to fight for it. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the desert gold. Come on, Sam said. Let's go home. They walked down the hill together. Behind them, Isai's grave stood watch. Before them, the ranch spread out like a promise kept. The story was told, the legacy passed on, and in the heart of a 15-year-old boy from Boston, something took root, an understanding of where he came from, of what his people had survived to give him this moment. Thomas would carry that understanding back east, would tell his own children someday, would pass down the ring and the story and the lesson that love, real love, can build empires from dust. And on a hill in Arizona, under a cottonwood tree, the warrior woman rested. Her battle fought, her victory won. Her love eternal, the land remembered, the family remembered, and that in the end was everything.